insider comes in from the Navy and tells Third Phase of Moon something extraordinary. In tonight's episode, we're going to have exclusive access above the Hollywood sign and an incredible story in regards to some kind of collision with a naval vessel named the Coronado in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, including a report from Tom himself where eyewitnesses are hazed aboard the Navy vessel if they come forward and speak about the UFO phenomenon. So buckle up as we go on an adventure and discover something that has never been heard before by the public. Let's get to it.
I work for the City of Los Angeles Communications or Base Maintenance. And then we have the technicians who take care of the site up here. The site was owned by Fox, LAPD, Fire, DOT, Sanitation. Everything is linked through this tower up here. So I monitor all the sites throughout the city of LA.
You actually work below the Hollywood sign itself, right?
That's correct, about 2 floors underground.
See, I don't think many people are aware that there's actually sub-levels underneath the sign.
There's actually a sub-level. We're in the fishbowl, as they call it, and it's basically a giant fishbowl with windows all around. And then we actually have an emergency escape if the tower was to collapse on the main door. We have an emergency escape hatch out the back.
Tell me about some of the sightings. You said that there was something that was
I saw something green behind. So my job was ICM in interior communications. So everything that had to go from one space to another was my job, including when they talk on the PA, captain's things, protocol, all that stuff was my equipment. But there's also shadows underneath, but you never were able to identify it.
Some unknown creature or a craft below the surface?
We don't know. I do remember seeing shadows and stuff, and then everybody goes and runs and starts talking about it, but again, what it was. But there were shadows underneath. If there is no ambient light anywhere, because we're in blackout conditions, it could be your eyes. We don't know. And our ship didn't have sonar. I know something broke off and it was called the pit sword. And we hit something going to Hawaii where it broke it off.
So you had a collision with the USO underwater submerged object?
In the middle of the freaking ocean, and something sheared off. But I was sent down there to replace the pit sword because we hit something in the middle of the ocean. And no one knows anything about it.
Now, later on in the evening, we wanted to ask Tom more questions in regards to the encounter in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He joined us later. Listen up.
I work for the City of Los Angeles in communications, which I got my training when I was in the Navy. And it actually certified and got my job here. I worked for AirTouch, I worked for Verizon and telecommunications since I got out of basically high school. I joined the military 2 weeks after I graduated from high school. Went to boot camp, graduated in that, graduated almost the top of my class, and I got orders to go to, at the time, San Diego, and I had orders to go on the USS Coronado, AGF-11, which was a 581-foot experimental vessel. That and the LaSalle was the sister ship, so there were 2 of them designed to be experiments. One of them, they floated a barge in it for all the high-ups like the president, Secretary of Defense, and things like that. Ours, they welded up the bow, and they made, residential suites in the back for the higher-ups. So technically, I knew about the first missile launch 2 weeks before because they were discussing it.
Launch of what?
That I can't tell you that. Let's just put it this way: we knew where the fleet was because we were Third Fleet.
All right, so let's talk about this encounter. There's, obviously, let's get into the history of these weird experiences with unidentified flying objects, UFOs, as the military calls UAPs now, over the Pacific Ocean. Let's get to some of the encounters you guys had out there.
Okay, so my job was communication, so I did like the windbirds, which would be about 40 feet off the deck. And, you go up there and that basically told you the direction of the wind and all the other good stuff, how many nautical miles was coming towards us, which then affects the waves and everything else. All the communications from the bridge going down to the screws, which we had 2 of them, and then we also had the rudders. Everything goes through communications equipment and lines down both sides of the ship. All that was mine. Well, usually on our bridge, we have the battle bridge, and then we had the main bridge. The battle bridge was to take over if the main bridge was at war. One of our instances is we actually blew up the deck of another ship during a Westpac. Basically, the commander said, fire the missiles, and he said, was it a scenario? And he said, I told you to fire, and we actually launched live missiles at another ship. That's just some inside stuff that happened. But no,
unidentified.
that was another thing we had. So you be out there, so when you go over the ocean, different oceans have different colors. When you head towards Hawaii, it's this weird bluish sheen, but as we make waves and go through it, it would glow green because we'd aggravate the plankton and they'd light off. But we used to see shadows underneath the water we couldn't identify. They'd be large, but they wouldn't be biological. So that was always, is it a biological? Is it not a biological? And usually we weren't able to identify it. Sometimes we'd see things and they'd see lights, they'd report it. They'd see if they saw it on radar. We didn't really have sonar, but we had some. But how we
report this to the top people?
So basically, you have a lookout on the starboard and the south side. Anytime we made a contact, which is we saw something, we'd then report it.
What happened next?
Usually they go back to I think they're called EWs, and they're the ones who have the radar in the back, and see if they got any contacts. But after that, we don't really know.
Were there reports of like hazing towards some of the people that wanted to report the phenomenon?
We'd report it, and then there was the hazing where it's like, oh, what'd you have in your coffee last night? Did someone spike it? You know, you had a little too much bug juice. That's what we used to call the sugar water they used to give us, the Kool-Aid that we used to clean metal with. That's how high it was in sugar content. And yeah, that would be a constant thing. Hey, did you see the blue lights last night? Did you see the green lights? Hey, did you see that triangle? And, you know, they just made fun of it. And no one knew anything, but we were required to log everything.
You know, these shadows is quite curious because I want to know, how fast were they moving? Was there a geometric shape to them? And wasn't there a collision, as a matter of fact, with your vessel?
I was on call. I got woken up around 3 o'clock in the morning saying that we lost how fast we were going in the water. So basically, I was sent down to the bows of the ship to lift up the pit sword. Maybe we picked up something, maybe we didn't. So basically, it's a little hole you have to weasel in. We have the lights mounted on the side of the wall because there's no way to put a lamp in there. And it's 270 screws that go to 2 individual screws that lower this 6-foot tall metal sword with 2 eyelets over it that sends electricity through it. So as you pass through the water, it tells us how many knots we're traveling through the water. I got down there and it's gone. About 3 feet of it got sheared off. We collided with something. No one tell me what it was, but I went up, started releasing the packet, and the ocean started to fill in. So I immediately went back down, screwed it down, tightened it back down, and then we had to go in for repairs.
What was the depth at that point? You didn't collect.
We're in the middle of the ocean. We don't know, over 5,000 feet? I don't know, there's nothing out there. But a biological, I couldn't see snapping a 3-foot or a 6-foot tall sword. I went down to the packing and I'm about this high on top, and then we have about this much packing, and the packing is basically metal, a whole bunch of rubber, and then screws on top so you can tighten it onto the sword. You released it and then you screwed it up. When we go out, after we leave the port, the sword goes down and it reads nautical miles on how fast we're traveling through the water. And it's at the very bow and the bottom of the ship. Now our ship is a 581-foot experimental vessel, and they used to call it a gator freighter, but me and the sister ship, so I was a USS Coronado AGF-11, our sister ship was called the LaSalle. So that one it's a flat bottom boat, and it's designed to sink on the bottom. So in the old days, they would basically unload an entire platoon out of the back of it. They welded it up. We still had Marines on board, but that was 3rd Fleet for everything that was going on, because we have 3rd Fleet, 7th Fleet, different fleets control different fleets throughout the Navy.
And what about the pilots talking about what they saw? And some of those encounters where they're being scrubbed, right?
Yeah, they immediately scrub it. It's like it doesn't exist.
So what you're saying is that when somebody wants to report some kind of phenomenon, either it's like what you are stating, that there's a collision with the craft, or there's visual contact, something within the skies in close proximity, they just want to deny and cover it.
No, we're forced. We can go to captain's mess and be punished if we don't report it. What happens after it reports is a whole different subject. But we have logbooks, we have the sound power phone systems. That's not being recorded, but everybody's talking on the ship. Everybody on that circuit. I can have 500 people on the same sound powered circuit. Everybody hears it goes on. Every time we have a fire, everybody reports that. We have, specialized things, triangle, top of the triangle. So they taught us all these different things.
Where is the communication breakdown from the crew to the higher ups to try to solve the mystery?
That's it. There is no communication. The higher ups are notified, and then they go down to the executive officer, and then they go to whoever's in charge. But us, we're not privy to any of that information. We just report. Kind of like a mall cop. What is it? Observe and report. But once it goes into that, we don't know where it goes.
So Tom, I want to get the idea of what the people on the ship were thinking. Was there conspiracies, people talking about it tongue-in-cheek? Maybe it could be extraterrestrial, a new life form, or some kind of foreign adversary with technology?
It's basically, you have a bunch of high school kids directly out of there seeing something and then talking to one another as the higher ups cover it up. It was an ongoing joke. It's kind of like hazing. They used to say, hey, go get some sound powered phone batteries. It's sound powered. There is no such thing as that. There was another joke where they used to say, hey, go get me a bulkhead remover. So I started walking around with a sledgehammer. I lay it on the DDR, which is a giant glass component that they track the ship on. It's just stupid, but it's kind of hazing that they do inside and internally. And then the constant joke is, did you have your coffee? Did someone spike your coffee? You've been drinking the cough medicine too much? We can't drink on board, so we got to get it somewhere. You know what I mean?
Did they think that it could be ET in nature or some unknown, life form that they?
We never felt threatened by it. It would just be what we're reporting. But there was a constant fear of being punished if we saw it and we didn't report it and someone else did report it. So there's a constant thing on, okay, so did I see it first? Was it on the port starboard side? Was it forward or astern? Because we have lookouts at all areas who are supposed to, their identification is to find out where a contact is. So there's a constant thing on who sees it first and who reports it as kind of like competitive, but then if you see it and don't report it, you get punished. Yeah, so you guys can hit me up on my YouTube channel. I do a lot of volunteer work for the U.S. Forest Department, or kind of. Azusa 6x6. Look it up in the search bar. So AZUSA 6x6. And then you'll see my big truck, my military truck, and I pull people out and try to rescue people and things like that. I don't charge. I just do it for subscriptions.
Well, this guy's close to LA. He's got a lot of sightings within the area. Maybe we're going to get some videos from Tom in the future, but appreciate it, man. Crazy information.
I have some contacts I want to call to see if they know anything about what we may have collided with. Other than everyone knows that we collided in Mazatlan. But that was during the day. So
you collided with something.
No, we collided with something cut off the pit sword, and we don't know what it was. But I couldn't see a biological doing that. At least without, coming to the top or doing something. It just doesn't make any sense.
We want to thank Tom for coming forward and telling Third Phase of Moon and the world in regards to the UFO phenomenon that's happening, and the cover-up is real. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that thumbs up and that subscription button and the notification bell for all to be notified when Third Phase of Moon breaks the news. Blake Cousins, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.